That's rough.
So, yes.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. That was a while back.
So this is from the AP.
2020?
Yep, Washington. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 Tuesday to close the courthouse doors on parents of a Mexican teenager who was shot dead over the border by an American agent. The court's 5 conservative justices held that parents could not use American courts to sue Border Patrol agent Jesus Mesa Jr., who killed their unarmed 15-year-old son in 2010. Mesa was on U.S. soil in Texas when he fired the fatal shot. Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the court that the case is tragic, but that the strong border security and international relations issues led to the ruling against the parents of Sergio Adrian Hernandez Goreca. Since regulating the conduct of agents at the border unquestionably has national security implications, the risk of undermining border security provides reasons to hesitate about allowing the parents to sue in American courts, Alito wrote. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, writing for her liberal colleagues, disagreed, saying the parents' lawsuit does not endanger border security or U.S. foreign policy. Mexico's Foreign Relations Department said in a statement Tuesday it regretted the Supreme Court ruling. Tuesday's outcome also is certain to doom a lawsuit filed by the parents of a teenager killed in Nogales, Mexico, from gunshots fired across the border by a U.S. agent who was standing in Arizona. The case has been on hold. The case tested a half-century-old Supreme Court decision that allows people to sue federal agents for constitutional violations. Over the years, the courts have made it harder to bring claims known as Bivens actions after the name of the high court case. Ginsburg wrote that, quote, "It is all too apparent that to redress injuries like the one suffered here, it is Bivens or nothing. I resist the conclusion that nothing is the answer required in this case." So let's take a stop there, right? What other avenues do they have if they can't use an American court to sue this federal agent? Then there is nothing. Their son dies from somebody who shot, and I don't know the exact, I would have to do more research on this particular case, right, before I can, so we have to just kind of use it as a loose example, but your son is murdered by a federal agent, and you don't have the ability, even, I guess this is a little bit different because they are in Mexico. They're not American citizens.
It
right?
seems like the major complicating factor there.
Certainly. I think that hits harder on her point that is the only option that they have, is this Bivens claim. The only thing that they can is try to use American courts to sue them, because what
else are you going to do?
Option is there?
Yeah, Mexico doesn't have jurisdiction over the Border Patrol.
Yeah, I am curious how it would be if it was American citizen, if they could do the same thing, right? If the same decision would be made that they could not sue on this Bivens claim against a federal agent. I don't know. Again, I'm not a constitutional scholar, so I can't answer that question. But
that's a big international type of question. I mean, that's if a citizen from one side kills a citizen on the other side of the other country, who has the legal jurisprudence or the what do you call that, their responsibility?
Well, it's not just a citizen. This is somebody who's acting on
as
behalf
the agent
of the state. He's a federal agent.
Yeah,
he works for the government. He's an agent of the state.
It would be
killed somebody.
Yeah, and it would be just as, or it would probably be more complicated if it was two citizens. But since it's an agent of the state at that point, then the state killed somebody in another country, like we do with drone strikes all the time, and there's zero retaliation, essentially. And that's a tough one, man, because I don't know what's the right thing to do there. I mean, you're not going to extradite this Border Patrol agent to Mexico and stand trial over there. I mean, that's not going to happen.
No.
So, yeah, what do you do? That's a weird situation.
So even if we can't postulate on how it would be different if it were American citizens in this case, right? We are seeing in this original example of the smugglers in on the border that these are coming closer to home, and they're limiting our rights as American citizens, our constitutionally protected rights, right? However you want to define that at this time, however you want to put it. It's coming closer and closer all the time, right? At first, or the most recent one after this, or before this, was this Mexican teenager, and I'm sure it was a little bit easier. People were real upset. It was during the Trump administration, so a lot of that AP article is even about, the militarization of the Border Patrol and stuff like that. So that's a lot of the take there. So it even seems like the focus is even shifted from that, of the people's rights to, the militarization of the border, right? Which is an issue in and of itself, but that doesn't seem like the real issue at hand.
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
Trees. Yeah, and
forest for the trees. Yeah, definitely on that one.
And I would beg everyone to keep their eyes open for things like this. And so we'll go to the bottom of the article and we can talk about kind of the end ruling for this here. Boulay notified. Oh, well, it's rooms at the inn are named after famous smugglers and other notorious individuals, and a black SUV used by the inn to transport customers to the property has the personalized license plate Smuggler. Boulay makes money by picking up guests who sometimes travel long distances, charging them for lodging, even if they never intend to stay, Thomas said, inserting a photo of bunk beds in one room of the property. But Boulay has also served as an informant for the U.S. government, and parts of the documents filed in the high court case were redacted. Boulay's lawyers have said he has a long-standing cooperative relationship with the U.S. government and has alerted officials to people of interest. Excuse me. So
interesting.
That even adds another layer to it, that even if you rap for them, they don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Even if you work with them, they don't give a fuck about you.
That's your people, man.
If you aren't actually an agent of the state, they don't give a fuck about you.
This should surprise nobody.
Yeah, and even if they are, even if you are, they still don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
So, in March 2014, Boulay told Border Patrol agent Eric Egbert that a guest arriving at the inn was from Turkey. Egbert was suspicious that the guest would travel over 7,500 miles to stay at a run-down bed and breakfast, and when the guest arrived, he went to the property to investigate. Boulay asked him to leave, but Egbert allegedly threw him to the ground, injuring him. After determining the guest was legally in the country, Egbert left. The guest ultimately crossed into Canada illegally the same night.
Wow. Insult to injury.
So... Boulay notified. So that's what I was talking about, right? After determining the guest was legally in the country. So that means he asked you to leave, and even if you didn't take the documentation, you still asked for documentation after somebody asked you to leave their residence, right? I don't know. I'm sure that there was arguments of, what do they call that? Like a reasonable suspicion.
Oh,
that
yeah.
something was going on.
Exigent circumstances, maybe.
Right. Boulay notified Egbert's supervisors and told, what the property of the guest ultimately crossed in Canada legally the same night. Boulay notified Egbert's supervisors and filed an administrative claim about the rough treatment, and Boulay says Egbert retaliated by making reports about him and his business to various state and federal agencies, including the Internal Revenue Service, but no agency found Boulay did anything wrong. Meanwhile, after a year-long investigation, the Border Patrol took no action against Egbert. So the person who did all of this, nothing was even done. There wasn't even any internal actions that were taken against him.
No.
Nothing. So you literally... no course of action at all. You can't. I mean, you can ask the Border Patrol to do something.
Yeah,
but they're not going to.
And they put him through the whole ringer, man. Like talking about bringing
and found nothing.
Yeah, and found nothing. So for no reason, this person got put on blast by the U.S. government, investigated for a year, and then was like, "Oh, yeah, nothing. We didn't find anything, even though there was nothing to begin with either."
Yeah. Boulay sued, saying Egbert had violated his Fourth Amendment rights by using excessive force and his First Amendment rights by retaliating against him. A federal trial court ruled for Egbert, but an appeals court reversed the decision, and Egbert appealed to the Supreme Court. So, after the agent of the state doesn't get his way, then he appeals, goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says, "Nah, you good, bro. You good."
God, man. More and more power, dude. Less and less power for ourselves. Less and less individual liberties. They just keep getting stripped away day by day by day, case in, case out. I mean, there's no way to see this other than that. I mean, this is just the state continuing to just do whatever the fuck they want to do and rolling right through citizens on their way to it. And then at the end of the day, nothing, they don't find anything, they don't do nothing. There's zero retaliation, there's zero pushback at all that you can give at that point.
Yeah,
William
Wallace. From my experience as a former Fed cop, there's really two outcomes with suing the state/government. Either they are not going to dispute it or tie it up for years in litigation. Yep. And they'll just run it out and run it out and run it out until you run out of money.
Yep.
Because they're running on your tax dollars. So you're paying for their lawyers as well as yours, even if you don't think it. Even if it doesn't feel like it at the
messed
time.
up.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the old, you can't fight City Hall?
Yeah.
Because, they're going to use your tax dollars to fight back against you.
Exactly.
Well, me, man.
And we can move on. You have the next story, right?
Yeah. Let's let me pull this up here real quick. Oh, this one is so good.
And I heard about this one earlier this week as well. I heard about it on the radio, and I was like, I'm not sure I even understand what I just heard on the radio.
Right?
Yeah.
Washington State. Oh, excuse me. This is the Washington State Supreme Court made a a very interesting opinion recently
Yeah.
that's got some things going. So we're just going to read this from the OPB right now. I went ahead and pulled up also the actual opinion from the Supreme Court. It's 37 pages, and we'll just say that the articles written about it were quoted correctly. Okay. So we're not going to cover that entirely. But Washington State justices, race a factor in analyzing police stops. So a person's race and ethnicity must be taken into account when deciding whether they were free to leave an encounter with police. The Washington Supreme Court said this Thursday in its latest decision seeking to counteract bias in the justice system. The unanimous ruling concerned Palasum. I'm probably mispronouncing that word. A man identified in court records as Asian Pacific Islander. When a Pierce County Sheriff's deputy found him sleeping in his car in Tacoma in 2019, some gave a false name and birth date, drove off as the deputy was checking for warrants, and crashed in someone's front yard. Whether someone was free to leave when he did was a key point in this case. At his trial, he sought to suppress evidence of his false statements, saying they were made only after the officer detained him by implying that he was under investigation for car theft. In reality, the car was not stolen, and the officer had no reason to detain him until after he sped off. The justices said, meaning the intentional detention was unlawful, and a lower court judge should not have allowed evidence of the false statement in trial. So we'll just pause for a second.
Right. What does that mean?
What happened? So this guy was asleep in his car. Cops came and asked him for his ID and all that stuff.
They ran his plates first.
Because they assumed the car was stolen for some reason.
Right, saw that it wasn't stolen. And at that point, they don't have any real reason to go and interact with him.
No.
Right?
They have zero reason whatsoever.
Just completely leave him alone and move on. Because it's not illegal to sleep in your car.
Yeah. Whereas, I will go a little deeper than that. I think the cop could have interacted with him if he wanted to and say, "Hey man, what's going? You tired? You want to? What's going on? And if you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to hide. Maybe you can actually help a dude. Maybe his fucking car's broke down and he's just passed out there waiting for somebody to come get him. Yeah. Who knows? There's a million different reasons. Last thing you need to do is go tell this guy that he's suspected of this is a stolen car or what's going on.
Yeah,
for just sitting in your car sleeping. Not into that.
No.
But you could, potentially have an interaction with somebody like that as a police officer in a positive manner. But it doesn't involve you going and running the plates and just go ahead and, taking. I mean, that's state overreach is what that is. This is a law enforcement officer just diving into something that's essentially none of his business. He's got no probable cause other than a supposedly suspected case of car theft.
And has the discretion to not do anything if he wants.
Indeed.
To move on with his night and find something better that actually maybe deserves his attention or someone who could actually use his help.
Yeah.
Who maybe is in trouble or something.
Yeah. And so we'll get into it further into the article, but the result of this ended up in a search of his vehicle, in which case a gun was found that he was not supposed to have, apparently.
Right.
So for one reason or another.
Do we know, does it say in here if it was unregistered to him or if he just wasn't? Because I know Washington is very particular about if you don't have your concealed pistol license, you aren't supposed to have a loaded gun in your car.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have everything separate and in its own box and everything, and you're not even supposed to have it within arm's reach. It's supposed to be in your trunk and shit if you don't have a concealed pistol license. They're very particular, Yeah. So it could be, it doesn't really matter either way. It's kind of bullshit. But I'm just curious whether it's a legitimate.
Oh, they don't even address that in this particular article.
But
I think in the Seattle Times
it doesn't really matter.
They do.